Yeah, that is pretty good, huh? Good evening. Thank you guys for being here. I'd like to start off by congratulating all of tonight's inductees. Also like to thank the Florida chapter of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. I've had the opportunity to work with them over the past several years, and really gave me an inside view of what they do. And you know, there's a lot to it, and a lot you don't know until you actually spend some time around them. You know, but the amount of work, energy, pride is something I really notice that they put into everything they do is really remarkable. And it means a lot to me to be inducted. It means a lot to me to spend time around them and see what they do. And it's really for all of us as coaches. So please thank you to Gary and the board and the Florida Chapter Hall of Fame. Thank you, guys. Throughout my coaching career, I very rarely look backwards. You know, as most of you know, coaching wrestling is a year-round commitment. So for me, it was always next practice, next tournament, next season, and you just kind of keep moving forward. And then when I found out that I was being inducted, I started thinking about tonight. And it was probably the first time that I really started to reflect back on the years and kind of look at things and how they've transpired. And the first thing that really hit me was what my life would be like, or who I would be if I hadn't found wrestling. And I say that because I didn't start wrestling until my junior year in high school. And without a handful of people and a series of events, I'm definitely not standing here tonight. And honestly, I don't know who I would be. I talk a lot to my kids, and I say my kids, my wrestlers, about focusing on what you can control. When and where you were born, who your parents are, is something that's obviously out of your control. So I'll say I guess I just got damn lucky. My parents are two of the most incredible people I know. And it wasn't until that I started to get older that I really began to appreciate how fortunate I am. I would have zero success with anything I tried to do without them and the traits that I've learned from them. For the longest time, I just assumed those were a standard. And, you know, work ethic, accountability, commitment, I realize are anything from a standard. They're more a precious commodity. And I'm extremely grateful that my parents are here tonight supporting me. Well, and again, they could be celebrating their 50th anniversary, which is today. You talk 50 years of marriage, and I think it kind of rounds out that work ethic, accountability, and commitment thing. And I'm just extremely blessed that my parents are here and supporting me, and thank them for tonight. My high school career, yeah, thank you. In '89, I started out my high school career at Springstead High School. The only thing I knew about wrestling was like Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. My sophomore year, I met Sean O'Bear and some of the other wrestlers. They told me to come check out a match, and I think it was like January. I went and I watched my first dual meet. And I walked in there, like, gym was packed, both bleachers out, place was packed. Lights went out, dome light turned on, wrestlers came in with the hoods on, and literally like every hair on my body stood up. And believe it, back then, like I had hair, like a full mullet, head of hair, I had hair. But I had never experienced an atmosphere like that. So the summer going into my junior year, I went to my first wrestling practice. And I know this sounds kind of cliche, but when I left there that night, I had felt like I found what I had always been searching for. I started building a relationship with Coach Levija, and one day he grabbed me after practice, and I don't remember exactly what he said. He always had a great way of making things seem very simple, but yet they always hit you right where they needed to. And he said something to the effect of, you could be one of the good ones. And he told me I got to be coachable and I got to outwork everybody. And in my little ignorant mind, I was like, I can do that. And I felt like I could justify that because that's what my parents had always taught me. And I never missed a practice after that. And really, you know, that day, Coach Levija changed the trajectory of my life. So later that year, it was my first year wrestling, I started also working out with this kid, Chuck Deason from Hernando High School. I started spending a lot of time with Coach Combs. I wasn't one of his kids, but for whatever reason, he always treated me like I was. And he just kind of continued to feed into that newfound passion I found. We still have an amazing relationship to this day. Only difference is he still looks exactly the same and I look a hell of a lot older. I'm telling you, this guy has found the fountain of youth. Like, you need to get on it. But the next summer, I qualified for the Florida national team. Nationals was in Minneapolis that year. I think it was the last year that Nationals was there before it moved to Fargo. And Coach Gary Freeze coached that team. For all you Green Wave guys out there, or anybody, or anybody who had the privilege of spending time around Coach Freeze, you were blessed. You were blessed. There's so many things that he taught me during that time that still stick with me to this day. I mean, like, push with the forearm, snap with the hand, push with the forearm, snap with the hand. I kid you not, like 33 years later, my neck is still sore from that man snapping my head. But I always have a tremendous amount of respect for him and what he did. I learned an incredible amount from him. My senior year, I was undefeated going to the state semifinals, and coincidentally, I had a Fort Myers kid. I'd wrestled him before, felt real good going to the match, and I lost, I think like 4-3 or something. And you know, when I look back on that match, what I learned from it was how important it is as a coach to one, know your opponent, two, have a game plan, and that you always don't have to be the best wrestler to win. And those are some things that Coach Freeze, I think, did amazingly. And you know, his record and the kids that he's produced, you know, shows that. And again, that was just something that has always been extremely important to me and stuck with me. When I got back from wrestling in college, I had the opportunity to coach with Coach Levija and his son Kevin. They taught me a lot about coaching, but they also taught me a lot about life. I had just met my wife during that time, and I can remember a conversation. It was after a St. Cloud tournament. Coach and I were talking, and he told me she's going to have to be a very special person. She's going to have to be somebody that's willing to understand my passion for coaching. She's going to have to, you know, be willing to live that lifestyle. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for any coach's wife out there, because you are anything but normal people. So we got married in 1999. Kevin Levija was my best man. 25 years later, my wife has been all of that and way more. We've been blessed with 3 amazing sons, Ethan, Braden, and Mason, who fortunately all fell in love with this sport like we did. And coaching my sons has been the greatest gift I could ever ask as a father. And it might be the other reason that I'm bald and dying of a bleeding ulcer. But seriously, I just hope they understand how much I love that. I know I probably didn't always show that, but you know, all those times dealing with adversity and failure are the things that make you really appreciate all the other times. So I try to be humble and not brag about them much, but I'm incredibly proud of them, and I'm incredibly proud of the men they've become. And neither them or I would be who we are or have any of the success we've had without the support and the selflessness of my wife, Christine, who has always put us before herself. I'm very blessed to have my family. I love them so much. So in 2004, this guy finds me. He comes up to me, he says, "Hey, my name's Eric Swensen. I'm the new head coach at Springstead. I was wondering if you'd like to come help out." And I had taken a few years off of coaching. Ethan and Braden had just been born, and I really hadn't given too much thought to coming back to coaching, so I kind of, yeah, them, whatever. And I want to preface this statement with I mean this in a good way, but this guy was like a horrible case of mat herpes. He just kept showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up, and so finally I was broke. I was like, all right, I'll come help out. I'll come help out. And I'll say this: I wish he was here. I've never formally thanked him, but man, thank you, because the day I walked back in that room, I've never left since. And we had a hell of a run. The relationship that was formed between Eric and I, more than Eric and I, our families, is incredible. Our kids it's truly family. I think for anybody in wrestling, when you spend time around your coaches, it becomes family, but it's just been an amazing run. What I'm really fortunate for was Eric's full trust in me and letting me really find my identity as a coach and develop as a coach. That's not easy to do when you're a young, competitive, very capable coach. And he just had no ego and was willing to do that. Those are years I'll never forget, and they're a huge part of who I am today. And kind of unexpectedly, I say sadly, in 2012, him and his family decided to move to Minnesota to be closer to their family. Eric and I talked about the scenario, and he told me that he had talked with administration. They wanted me to take over as the head coach at Springstead. And truthfully, being a head coach was never something on my radar. I was always very content with being an assistant coach. I felt that's where I was best. And honestly, I had zero confidence that I was ready to be a head coach. So I called Coach Combs, who had retired from Hernando a few years earlier. And I remember this conversation. I called him. I said, hey, Coach, told him what was up. I said, man, I'm not ready for this. I don't have a coaching staff. And he was like, hey, Charlie will be your assistant coach. Michael and Billy will run the JV. I'll be at all the practices. Take it. So I hung up the phone, called Susan Duvall, who was the principal at Springstead at that time, and I took the job. And I'll say this, I wish I had more time. I'll try not to go too far over what I'm supposed to, but Susan Duvall was one of the best ever. For those of you who know Miss Duvall, you want to talk about lead by example, man, she did that to a level that's just remarkable, and I have and always will have the utmost respect for her. But the Combs family was really my lifeline, and without them, I wouldn't have succeeded as a head coach. I learned so much from Coach Combs. Charlie poured every ounce of spare time that he had into the program. Mike and Billy ran the JV like a D1 program. And Melanie really devoted herself to me and the Springstead program like she had done for, 30, 40 years at Hernando High School. And they're a huge part of why I'm here and who I've become. And I will always love them and thank, between the Levias and the Combs, they're just genuine special people, so thank you so much. So in 2015, I spoke to Mike Shigitano, who was the head coach at Jesuit at that time, and we had a conversation that kind of played out a scenario of him going back to college to get his master's degree and get into administration with the goal of one day becoming a principal, and I to take over the wrestling program. And my goal was that we were going to win the first state title for wrestling in the school's history. And in 2019 and 2020 school year, much quicker than anticipated, Mike Shigitano became the newest principal, or the next principal at Jesuit High School. And that very same year, wrestling won its first state title in school history. And that will always be one of the most special moments of my coaching career. Not for me in the wrestling program as much as it was for Mike and what he's done for me and my family. And I said this at our banquet that year, I don't know whether it was fate, destiny, or God's plan, but I know that didn't happen by coincidence. And I can't thank enough Mike Chicatano, the Jesuit administration, Father Hermes, Terry Rupp, Zach Prado, for the opportunity to coach there, but really for their trust in me. They've really let me take that program and move in some different directions and kind of go against some traditions that it just means a lot when you care about something as much as they do. To give me that trust and to let us move in those directions is something that I can never thank them for. And it's been amazing, and a big part of the success at Jesuit. There's a lot of backside to this story, but basically a picture of a hotel room decorated with black mold, me wearing a way too small, illegally copyrighted shock top quarter zip. That picture would bring David Mason into my life. We coached the national dual team that summer, and we spent a lot of time that week talking, and I explained to him my vision of Jesuit wrestling and what it could be, and I knew he could be a huge key to that success. And after, probably 4 or 5 months of blowing smoke up his ass and telling him everything I possibly could to get him to a practice, he finally came to a practice. It was over winter break, and we were leaving for Atlanta, Georgia for the prep slam in Atlanta, Georgia, like a day or two later after this first practice. That morning, he comes rolling in, got a suitcase packed, ready to go, jumped in the van, and we've never looked back. And he's got one of the greatest minds I've ever seen in the sport of wrestling. I learn from him every single day. I grew up an only child, so I can't really say I know what it feels like to have a brother, but I'm pretty sure it's how I feel for David Mason. He's been that brother to me. He's been there for me through some really tough times. And he'll be up here standing here telling his story sometime real soon. Sorry, I get a little emotional over this stuff. I got to thank my current coaching staff. You'll be hard pressed to find a more credentialed group of guys that have zero ego, and that are amazing men. Kevin Nordstrom, Dom Forrest, Luke Gardner, Cody Ross, who I not only have the opportunity to coach, but now I get to coach with. Marshall Smith, who's another huge reason why I'm at Jesuit, who will always be my guy. Coach Cunningham, who's taken our youth program to another level. And just to wrap it up, man, there's been a lot of years, a lot of teams, a lot of memories for everyone. Wrestlers, coaches, families, anyone that has allowed me to be just a little part of your journey. Thank you. You're the reason I'm here. I'm extremely humbled and grateful for everybody that's here tonight. I appreciate you giving me the time to let me share my story and have my little moment. So thank you all so much. Have a great night.